Lokati here. Today we are talking about our Viper Strike of the Mamba Slayer. I know everyone is excited about all of the melee changes, and Viper Strike gives us a really solid option for a poison damage over time chaos build Slayer that absolutely melts everything. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a mapping example of what this build can actually do. Alrighty, let's get started and take a look at what we are going to be doing in map. We're going to just grab this silo map, more attack speed, more life, cannot be stunned, gain frenzy charges. It's a juicy one, but it's nothing too dangerous here. Nice little 8 mod T16 map to sink our teeth into. The fences on the build are pretty solid for a dual wield build. We have a high fizz hit cap, high LE max hit cap, we have good leech, we have good general defenses, and we are running 3 auras. They are precision, determination, and malevolence. If you're feeling really not tanky, you can switch malevolence out for period of elements to get ailment immunity, or you can get ailment immunity through the trees with things like ancestral vision and so on. But for now, we're just going to blast this map and see how it goes. Now, whirling blades actually can just kill most of the stuff in the map, but if you don't feel like just whirling bladesing through it and spreading poison everywhere, you can stop and melee attack it. That works too. That is an explodey chest, so we don't want to be anywhere near that. We are a semi-ranged build with the ability to strike from a range with our non-vol strikes, and then we have ambush for leaping in on really big packs and dumping a huge bleed on packs that we're a little bit afraid of. And so it's all pretty straightforward. It's really fun to play because you just zoom around the map the whole time. We're not even meleeing anything here, we're just blasting. We'll hit our bismuth node, and then all this stuff back here will just melt away. Whenever you're moving around, you want to make sure that you're not standing still, taking melee hits to the face, because we are a dual wield build, not a shield build. And so our block is fairly limited for tons of hits coming in. But again, we have 4k life, great resistances. We're capped in everything, including chaos, and have a really nice solid layer of evasion and armor to help out with resistance anyway. Now, if you're doing altars, you want to stay away from some of the really nasty altars like lowered resistances, and getting lowered resistances is really going to blast you if you end up taking like a fizz damage as fire with lowered elemental resistances. Those kind of combos can blast you. Now, we are a multi-button build, so we have a lot of things going on here. Whirling Strike is our main movement ability. We can also spread poisons with it fairly effectively, just like that. We have Viper Strike of the Mamba that we can use for big single targets, or just blasting targets from further away than dashing through them with whirling strikes. And we also have attacks that buff our main attack. And so if it's a big pack and you want to do a lot of damage, then you're going to ambush in on them and then Viper Strike them, and it'll dump a large bleed on them. If you want to, you can turn on Envy. Envy is bound to Guardian's Blessing, so it melts our permanently recuperating pets so that they come back to life after they melt down from the Guardian's Blessing. Against bosses that don't have 2 immune phases, you can usually just kill them in 1 poison. The combo for a large single target is going to be turning on your Tincture, hitting your Envy, ambushing to the target, and then immediately melee. And that drops a 30-ish million bleed with a 28-ish million caustic ground on the ground for 58 million-ish DPS on the target. They just die. Everything dies. It's quick, it's easy, it's fun, it's engaging. If you're looking for something to play that keeps you awake and excited to continue playing the game, this is definitely the one to go for. So we'll get back over to the POB and I'll explain everything in a little bit more detail. Alright, now we're going to take a look at the POB for the Viper Strike of the Mamba. We're looking at the low budget version first with Beano's Kitchen Knives, Haunted Bassinet. These are 5 chaos knives. This is a 510 chaos helm. You got a div or 2 in this Covenant Silk robe, some 5 chaos mitts, 5 chaos vectors, 5 chaos Ungol's Harmony, maybe 50C in these rings, 5 chaos belt, some cheap flasks, a cheap tincture, some 25C jewels, some 50C cluster jewels. Nothing here is perfect, and that is by intention. This is the 10 div budget build. So this gets you into 17 million proliferating chaos poison damage melts everything on the screen, melts bosses, easy to play, has 12k max fizz hit, a 50k effective health pool, 31k LE hit. We're at 3700 life. It is fast, it's tanky, and it does a lot of damage. We're running 15k armor in the build, 10k evasion, and so it feels very smooth. And we even get a little bit of block and 81% spell suppression to help keep the recovery going. We are maxed on fire, chaos, and lightning res. It could do a little bit of work on chaos res, but again, this is just the low budget version of the build. Now for our skills, we are running Viper Strike of the Mamba with Void Manipulation, melee fizz damage, critical damage, endurance charge on melee stun, and swift affliction. The reason we're using endurance charge on melee stun is because we are running 9 frenzy and endurance charges, and so that is a massive increase to our damage from endurance charge on melee stun. It also gives us a little bit more generation when we hit really small targets. Now on our auras, we're running Enlighten with Determination and Malevolence, and we're running a Guardian's Blessing with Raise Spectre and Meat Shield. And we're going to move these around because I have these slotted a little wrong. So we're going to do Malevolence on Guardian's Blessing, and we can put that on our helmet. And then we're going to run Determination with Flesh and Stone on the low budget version of the build. And this is primarily designed to bolster our tankiness. And so we're going to be in sand stance all of the time, giving us a 15k max fizz hit instead of our 12k max fizz hit, and a little bit more effective health pool with absolutely no impact on our damage because we are using Raise Spectre, Guardian's Blessings. We're going to use a Spectre that raises itself when it dies called Dark Marionette. We're going to carry 2 of them on our Raise Spectre gem, and so every time they are up, we're going to hit Malevolence, and we get about 8 seconds of Malevolence before they die, and then they take about 2 to 3 seconds to raise themselves. Occasionally, they will die asynchronously, so that one is dying while one is reviving, and then you'll never have to turn on Malevolence again, and it'll just stay running. And so you'll just get a feel for that on keeping this running. It's similar to what we were doing last season with Divine Blessing. Instead, we're just using Guardian's Blessing and Raise Spectre to give us a button to keep this buff up and going. Now, if you don't have Malevolence on, we're still doing a very respectable 15 mil DPS, but when you need it, one touch of a button, you've got the damage there. We are also running Alchemist Mark on life tap with Mark on hit. Alchemist Mark is giving us caustic poison ground DPS that is nearly equivalent to our poison DPS. It's one of the main ways we are scaling the build, and we are running precision with arrogance to keep our critical strike chance up. It is very crucial that you have 100% critical strike chance because we only apply poisons when we crit. On our tree, we are running Perfect Agony, which converts all of our dot multi to 0, all of our crit multi to dot multi, and then only applies poisons when we hit with a critical strike. So what we're going to do is crit the target, drop a huge poison with a caustic ground. That target dies. Everything around it is then poisoned with the poison. All those targets die. We pick up loot. We move on to the next pack. Very simple playstyle. Now, versus bosses and extremely tanky targets, you do have the option of ambushing them. Ambushing them gives you 138% more crit strike multiplier, which is 138% more damage. And so you're going to ambush into a target with Malevolence active and hit it with Viper Strike of the Mamba to do huge bursts of poison damage on the target. Now for our tree, we are a Slayer. We are going Ascendancies, Masterful Form, Brutal Fervor, and Headsman. These are non-negotiables. Nothing else is good. These are the good ones. Don't ask questions. For our tree over here, we're dropping down straight into Bravery. We're coming all the way across to get our Frenzy Charge here. We're picking up Cloth and Chain and Armor and Evasion Mastery for a huge layer of defenses, and of course Life. And we're dropping down here to pick up Charge Mastery. Coming over here, we're picking up Life, we're picking up Spell Suppression, we're picking up Life, we're picking up Frenzy Charges. So you're seeing a trend: Life and Frenzy Charges, Life and Frenzy Charges, and Spell Suppression for a defense. And again, we have a Cluster Jewel here, we have a Cluster Jewel here. On our large Cluster Jewel, we are running Low Tolerance and on a medium cluster jewel, we are running low tolerance and low tolerance. On our large cluster jewel, we are running Grim Oath, Touch of Cruelty, and Unwaveringly Evil. We are not actually speccing into Touch of Cruelty, but we need that one to force Grim Oath and Unwaveringly Evil on the front of the cluster jewel here. Coming up the tree further, we are taking Mark the Prey. We are taking Leech Mastery and Clever Thief so that we can maintain mana on our targets. And we are taking Dagger Mastery for the 100% crit strike multiplier against enemies on full life. And we're taking Backstabbing. Now, just to reiterate this is a poison build, but we are only dropping 1 poison. Viper Strike of the Mamba only allows you to put 1 poison on the target, but it's a big one. And so the majority of your playstyle, again, is going to be ambushing in or dashing in, dropping a big poison, and just picking up loot. There's not a lot of standing around and auto-attacking to play this game. It is very straightforward. The only time you're going to stand around auto-attacking is if it's a large target and you need to keep your life regen generating. This is why we are not running Deadly Ailments. I understand that Deadly Ailments is a higher DPS than Swift Affliction, melee fizz damage, increased critical damage. But if you run Deadly Ailments, you will do 80% less damage with hits. And we need this hit DPS to keep our life leech going. So we are running these jewels. If you're dying a lot and you come in my stream and you ask me, why am I dying a lot? The first thing I'm going to ask you is, why do you have Deadly Ailments socketed on your Viper Strike of the Mamba? So we run with these, we get in, we deal our poison, we pick up our life regen, we move on with life. Very, very straightforward build. As you're leveling the character, getting up to here first is important, getting all of your frenzy charges first is important, but this is generally not a leveling build. This is something you're going to be playing in the end game. But if you want to play this as a leveling build, come by the stream and I'm absolutely happy to sit down and figure out a way to put this together for you. Now, on our mid-budget version of the build, we are doing about 44 million DPS on 50 Divine. We have a very high damage dagger that we have crafted, or sword that we have crafted. You can use either a dagger or a sword here. You will do more DPS with a dagger, but this is the one that I had whenever I was playing the character. And so ideally we would have a weapon that looks like this. And you're going to have a dagger. It's going to be a gutting knife. And we want fizz damage. We want fizz damage. And we want fizz damage. And then on our suffixes, we are going to want global crit multi. And we don't actually care about attack speed. And so for the rest of this, doesn't matter what your last suffix is. We don't want crit strike chance because we're going to craft into this instead of using this. And so you can use this as an opportunity to take life on hit or chaos resistance or more accuracy rating, however you want to do on that last suffix there. And then again, we're going to craft strength and int plus critical strike chance on here because we're going to need that for some gear. We actually need to also rune craft on this dagger, which we'll go over in a second. We're going to craft on this envy rune craft right here, and this very, very cheap, like 50 chaos rune craft, results in 44 million damage. So it is very, very big for us to have envy on our offhand weapon. And this is why in the high-end budget of the build, we are not just using a second Benos, which is actually a really good weapon, because we want to get access to envy. Now, our passive tree is largely unchanged. We just add cluster jewels that end up costing around 3 div to get circling oblivion in with low tolerance. And so those get to be a little bit of a price point on the build. And then our items are just a little bit better versions. We have like frenzy charges corrupted on our snakebite mitts here. We have better stats on our helmet here. We have physical damage to attacks on our ring here. We do have a increased global critical strike chance corruption on our Ungol's Harmony here, and then so on and so forth. So we have a little bit better. Our jewels are better, our clusters are better, so on and so forth. All right, and on the skills here, we are running Awaken Void Manipulation, Awaken Melee Fizz Damage, Awaken Swift Affliction. We are still running Ambush with Second Wind. We are running Determination with Malevolence and Enlighten. And then we are using our Raise Spectre Guardian's Blessing in our second socketed weapon to allow us to run Envy. And this is a very, very powerful way for us to get a free 50% reservation skill here. It allows us to do tons of burst damage. Now again, if you're not pressing the button Envy on your bard for the burst damage, we still do a very respectable 35 mil DPS. So typically you'll just use Envy if you see a very tanky rare or a boss, and you can just spam clear with all your other abilities and get everything done. Now if you have any questions on the build, leave a comment down below. I will get to them as soon as I can. If you have specific questions about your build, come by my channel. I spend about 80% of my day just looking at path building, helping people to figure out what they can do to improve their character in the game, and I love it. Teaching was always a passion of mine, and I'm getting to teach video games now, and so I couldn't ask for anything more. Alright, y'all. Thanks for watching the video. As always, come by Twitch if you have any questions, or check out this video that YouTube thinks you like, or check out our latest upload over there. Peace.